Folks, you're with Tacitus today. Tacitus today, your pushback channel. Thank you for joining this audio no pictures live stream. Please listen to this presentation as you would a radio broadcast, as you're driving along in your car, your truck, or put in those earbuds in public transport and take it all in. In this essay, I'd like to talk about what is populism. What is the definition of populism? Why is it something that the elites use as a term to sneer and condescend towards the other, the masses, the plebs? And let's cover what all the wider issues around populism. What was populism when the communists were doing it, for example. So we need to really parse and dissect this to some extent. Now, going online and just looking, I was thinking I'll try and find some definitions, and there's quite a range of them, but they all seem to focus on the same thing. Populism is the sort of thing that appeals to ordinary people. It appeals to people of low education. It appeals to rural, low IQ hicks who chew hay seeds and spit tobacco. So that's the sort of the wider narrative that seems to be around. And those people, they vote for Trump and his populist policies. Now, the policies that are supposed to be populist aren't really described. So this is very much a sneer tactic and campaign rather than articulating genuinely, well, what is populism? So when, Kamala Harris or a leftist politician, Democrat politician, US says, and we're going to restore women's right to choose, women's body, women's choice, and we're going to do. Is that not populist? Everybody cheers and claps. So that's populism, isn't it? Isn't that populist? Isn't that a policy that is an applause line more than a policy, I guess? But isn't that a policy that is populist? No. It's not populist. It's only populist when they do it. So let's having sorted that out. If it's anything that's popular with the people, now the will of the people is meant to be what decides, the people decide the government, and the will of the people decides the government through the democratic process. Now, it doesn't matter whether democracy is Republican, Nigeria, it's the people voting to select their government. And that is, in the overall sense, the democratic process. So when governments produce policies that the people want, is that populist? And is that therefore something that warrants those who vote for policies they like, government policies? Is that populism, and does it qualify for sneering condescension? Again, it's the elites decide. The elites are of the view, well, we're in the minority, but we know best. We have to make the decisions, and decisions that the hoi polloi, the ordinary people, the votes that and the things that they vote for don't count. They're not legitimate. We are. They're not. Therefore, we as maybe 5% of the population, we decide, and our votes, our decisions should be, and I mean, this idea of being subject to the will of the people, excuse me, we decide how it should be, and that's what it is. And that's very much the globalist attitude, that we, the elites, get together at Davos, we decide. The idea that we should be subject to, or the very notion we should be subject to the will of the people, is laughable. It's so yesterday, and to whatever extent we were prepared to share power with the people in days gone by, those days have gone, and we decide what will and won't be, and those, why should we listen to those people, and so on. So, but populism, I mean, if we look at, let's say, the Marxist agitators of the 1800s, the later 1800s, particularly after Das Kapital was published, we're talking 1890s, that sort of thing. Those agitators were saying, well, look, the elites own the means to production, the factories and that sort of stuff. So they're the bad guys, we're the victims. I'm simplifying a little bit here, but we're the victims, and we have to rise up until we own the means of production. And so all you people there, you will be the owners of the factory. You will own the means of production. And so it was sold to them on the basis that once the boss that owns the factory, he lives in a nice house, and he's got a pretty wife, and he's got a nice car or something, or boat. He lives a lifestyle that everybody would want. And if we rise up and take control of the means of production, then you too can have that nice house and the pretty wife and so on and so forth. And he has nice parties with lots of hot chicks there and so on. So is that not populist? So you can have what he has. Now, even moving forward into the 1970s, and say that the election in Chile of the Marxist Salvador Allende government, one of the rare times Marxists actually win an election. Now, there was a lot of questionable tactics in the election, but nonetheless, now agitators from Cuba and I think it was Colombia or some Marxist type governments sent Spanish-speaking agitators to Chile to go and stir up the peasants, and they would pack them in a bus and they drive them around the richest areas, the wealthiest areas of Chile, down Viña del Mar and all that sort of thing. And they would drive them around to see that fancy white mansion there, that beautiful crystal blue swimming pool, all the hot chicks swimming in the swimming pool and having a party. That will be yours. If once the Marxist government is, all that will be yours. You will have that. So these quite simple peasants think, whoa, you mean I'll have that waterfront mansion with all the hot chicks? Holy crap, I want a piece of that. So isn't that populist? So if you want to define populism, it's something that the people or a group of people want, and they're prepared to vote for. Now, whether they're deceived into thinking you can have there's all those white mansions and the hot chicks can be yours. The reality is quite different, of course. But when you're a low IQ peasant from the back, and then the person with authority is telling you that's going to be yours if we win, then you see that in very personal gain terms of, wow, I've always wanted a waterfront mansion. So wherever you look at all the Democrat policies in the US and so on, they're all populist in their way, appealing to their base and appealing to those that are most likely to vote for them or approve of them. And of course, you're parroting the talking points of the globalist elite. Now, this constant reference to populism is only populism if it appeals to ordinary people. That's quite jarring, I think, and I would assert an indictment of those that would sneer at others and condescend to them in that way. So the people want mass migration stopped, and a political candidate like Donald Trump says, "Well, I'll do that." Populist. And as soon as the word populist comes up, then it goes straight to fascist, straight to Nazi, straight to Hitler. So it's like a quick pathway to invoking the name of Hitler, which is, again, the standard go-to if you want to defame somebody. So now, so any political candidate's policy that goes against globalization or questions it, that is derided as populism. But anything that promotes, let's triple the amount of mass migration, let's have black lesbians everywhere, yeah. I mean, that's populist. It appeals to a very small number of people, of course, but it's still populist. So really, any politician is going to claim they're going to do this, they're going to do that, and that will appeal to some group. But only if it appeals to the majority does it, in today's parlance, does it become a populist policy. So the idea of the mass of people or the majority of people deciding something through the ballot box, the will of the people, and a politician delivering the policies to those people, such as stopping mass migration, that is what's derided as populist. So it's a very, very selective and very narrow type approach to determining what populism is and isn't. And so that's really where it's at, where things are at now. So they'll accuse Trump of being populist, and populist thus means Nazi and thus means Hitler. So they use that. And again, the globalist controlled media are all over pushing that ridiculous and absurd narrative. But it seems that the elites, the globalist controlled elites, seem to be genuinely concerned, or they genuinely believe that the days of the majority, the ordinary people, the days of the majority deciding government policy and voting for those days must and should and have to be over. That they have to be consigned to the dustbin of history. The new definition of democracy or management by a globally centrally controlled, really quite communist elite. I mean, rich for them, they can own stuff, but for the rest of us, it's an imposition of communism. And so that is the new order as they would see it, and anything that resembles the will of the people is, they will deride, populist, and thus they have to malign it and claim it's Nazi and so on. But that's where really we're at now in terms of populism. Populism is the will of as they see it, the ordinary people, which are by the way, derided of people that didn't go to college to study, to do gender studies or African American studies or lesbian studies or lesbian dance theory or something. If you didn't do those things, then that's it. You're one of the ordinary people, and you shouldn't be allowed to have a decision. You shouldn't be allowed to have a say. And it's only right and proper that you shut the fuck up and do as you're told. And that's populism, or its definition and the circumstances surrounding it. You've been a Tassos today, your Pushback channel, and thank you for listening.